Welcome to another episode of Monster Monday from the Ready to Die channel. Every Monday, I take the opportunity to present a creature that I have built for Pathfinder 2nd Edition and then delve into a bit of its design process. The stat block for this creature and many more can be found over on the Monster Monday blog, which is linked below, along with the Monster Monday Twitter and Discord. The blog additionally includes a Pathfinder 1e and D&D 5e version of each creature. For this week's monster, I'm tapping into a game I've dabbled in but haven't completed, Remnant, From the Ashes. This game has a host of adversaries for players to face, and possibly the coolest faction are the Root. These plant creatures come from beyond Earth and seek to conquer it. Plant monsters are always fun, and I wanted to explore an option that really hasn't been touched upon yet. To that end, I decided to build the root monster known as the Splitter, though I also borrowed effects from the boss version of it, the Riphide. It was difficult to determine what level to build the Splitter at, which led to me leaning more into Riphide. For the sake of level diversity, I landed on building it as a level 10 creature. Aside from being a plant creature, I wanted to play into them being these extraplanar beings. With that in mind, and the upcoming wood element included in Rage of Elements, I used the elemental, plant, and wood traits for it, as well as the root trait, in case I ever wanted to further explore this concept. A high constitution score is necessary to ensuring that the splitter can survive attacks, its health being a large portion of what makes this creature work. I know that sounds silly, because health is something very important for all creatures, but the splitter in particular is going to make considerable use of it. It's something of a switch hitter with its dual blades, using them to fight in melee and at range alike. To this end, it uses both a moderate dexterity and strength score, but isn't particularly reliant upon any of its mental ability scores. Before I delve into the defensive numbers for this splitter, we have to talk about its eponymous ability, Split. As far as I've found, this is an ability usually only included in oozes, but I like the concept of it on plant creatures, and it works well on this one in particular. In-game, the splitter triggers its own division, and while that is included in the creature with force division, this split ability is the main way it will do so in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. To ensure that the creature's numbers don't become absolutely busted, every time it splits it halves its HP between the two. For most oozes, this effect triggers on slashing and piercing damage, but I restricted it to slashing damage for this guy, as that fits better with it being made of wood. With that in context, the splitter is styled somewhat similarly to oozes, using a very high hit point value, but a low armor class. I considered taking the armor class even lower, but my play testers convinced me that it was fine. Hey, short little note, just a quick confession. I messed up the test for the splitter. Everything was going good until I realized that I was forgetting to have its health every time it split, which led to a much longer fight than it should have been. So, my bad. I was a little careful with its reflex save. Putting it too low was a good way to see the splitters get wiped out in a single fireball or similar effect once they split too much. Keeping that in mind, I put the reflex save as low, but not all the way into the terrible value range. Given its high constitution, it will obviously also use a high fortitude save. As an elemental, it has several traditional immunities that felt appropriate for a creature made of wood. Referencing Riphide, it also has resistance to both rot and cold damage. I flavored the former as poison damage, which elementals are already immune to. However, negative damage might be a more accurate type for rot, which I'll leave that up to GMs making use of it to decide. As a creature made of wood, it naturally has a weakness to fire damage for the players to exploit. The splitter wields a pair of curved and jagged blades that it can hurl with surprising range and accuracy. I decided to flavor these blades as hatchets since they are slashing weapons with decent damage, but this means, even with making them striking weapons, the damage is on the low side of values. My original intent, when I was putting this together in my head, was to have it use a moderate attack and moderate damage. Since the hatchets locked me to low damage, I compensated by giving it a high attack bonus. This makes its attacks more consistent, crits a bit likelier, but its damage is still smaller. Most of the splitter's powers, understandably, revolve around its split and the army it creates. I was a little worried about players taking too much of an advantage of its armor class, so I included Lost in the Woods as a defensive ability. The wooden forms of this splitters blend together, making it difficult to pick out a specific splitter and thus making them concealed. This ability notably relies on splitters being adjacent to each other, so if you have 3 splitters in a line, only the middle one is actually concealed. Similar in design is the Splitter's Splintering Assault, helpfully named by one of my testers. The additional 2d6 damage this provides raises the splitter's average damage to 24, right between moderate and high averages. Among its activated abilities, the simplest to address is its Force Division, which I mentioned briefly earlier. With this creature being so reliant upon split, I wanted it to have an option to still use it even if the enemies don't have slashing weapons. However, to keep this from completely overwhelming the party, the new splitter comes in Stun 2. This means that this new splitter can't use Force Division, at least not the round that it's spawned, and can't endlessly spawn other splitters, clogging the field. The boss version of the splitter has an ability to release a shockwave, and sometimes each splitter will do so in quick succession, making dodging them all a challenge. To that end, I built Overwhelming Force as a damaging area effect that uses a high DC but has a lower damage value for unlimited use. Part of my reasoning behind designing it with no cooldown is that it seemed like it could get confusing to have it be on a cooldown while other splitters are coming into being and how it affects their use of this ability. Finally, Riphide has the power to sacrifice one of its bodies to heal the others. For the Greater Wood is designed to emulate that and also be one of the worst puns I have ever created. I hope to top it someday. I considered just having this be a base amount of healing, but thought it would be fun to base it on the health that the splitter has left. Another reason why I stuck to this concept is that GMs that use splitters at a higher or lower level don't have to worry about modifying this ability. They can just be concerned with increasing or decreasing its hit points. Again, I was a little cautious about making this too powerful, so this healing is limited to the adjacent splitters. This felt like a short one, but it's nice to work on something relatively simple every now and then. This wooden warrior wields wicked weapons while overwhelming wanderers in the wild. Able to become an army unto itself, the splitter is an enemy that you have to be careful about using, mostly in not being like me and forgetting to have the hit points whenever you split the creature. I may return to the route someday to build more from their gallery, but this is it for now. Be sure to let me know what you think and what other monsters you might like to see. Next week, we're returning to the world of Monster Hunter for a pretty cool dog. You can check out the Monster Monday blog and Twitter for the stat blocks, or hop on the Discord to join the monster making and general tabletop discussions. The posts below also include a Pathfinder 1st Edition version of the monster, along with a D&D 5e conversion. Thanks for watching, and have a monstrous Monday.